Okay. There are, what is that?
I had an audition the other day, so I'm showing people this.
Is that you?
Oh my gosh,
You
were
look
you
fabulous.
22
It doesn't even
there?
look like you.
Damn, can I pick an age of
How old are you?
22.
Wow. That really doesn't look like you.
interpreter.
That's a fabulous picture. It's a gorgeous picture.
Show the video
Senior
camera.
photo.
It was your senior photo on the camera. Okay.
Sorry, I ran up. That's awesome.
We're going to talk about and look at 7 major features of ASL. When we're working from English into ASL, we need to try to remember these 7 features so that we can incorporate them into our work. When we're working from ASL into spoken English, we again have to be cognizant of and remember these features because oftentimes we will have to compress them. We have to change them because they are ASL features. There you go, compression. There's another word for that sign. Because many of these features are not translatable into spoken English. They don't come across as sounding natural or idiomatic in spoken English because they are based on the visual nature of ASL. Okay, and we're going to talk about them all in depth. So, the first one we're going to go through is contrasting. One of the features of ASL to make a point clear is using contrasting, which we just talked about a little bit when we talked about saying the opposite.
We just covered this in advanced.
Yes.
So
In
this is
advanced
very fresh.
linguistics.
Yeah.
Great.
This is very fresh.
So this is one of those where in order to make sure that an interpretation from spoken English into ASL is clear, instead of always reiterating it, presenting it again, in order to clarify the concept, we can add in the opposite or contrast it with the opposite to make sure that it's clear. Does that make sense? Okay. So if in spoken English someone says, oh, he walks normal. He walks at a normal pace. If we're going to sign it into ASL, sometimes as the interpreter, our gut feeling is when I put it out there, I'm feeling like, you know, maybe that's not as clear as I want it to be. So instead of trying to sign it again to show emphasis on it or clarify it, one way to do it is to contrast it with the opposite. Does that help?
Mm-hmm.
Clarify, shows you the difference. You're not going to get it in spoken English. We have low context language. English is low context language, meaning someone is just going to state, oh, he walks normally.
Mm-hmm.
As the interpreter, we have to remember we're going into a high context, high content language that needs expansion and clarification, and the way that we do that, one technique that we use is to contrast.
Do you find that you use it a lot when it's on like a level, like a spectrum, words that are on a spectrum? Because normal could mean, you know, this way or whatever, you know, and like I see the warm and the cold, that can be like on a level.
Right,
Is
and
that
what
you
else
use
are
it
these
for?
words? Cold, warm, normal, slow, what?
Infinite.
Degrees.
They're degrees, it's not a noun, it's an adjective. So yes, some of those adjectives are degrees, or showing emphasis. To get to the specific word, we don't always have an ASL sign for it, but to get to that meaning, we can show the range of adjectives or degrees, emphasis, to get to the point. Does that make sense? Can anybody think of another example besides these 2 that I have up here that would work well? You got something?
I'm trying to refer back to Tom's one.
Well, I was just thinking. just to say, oh, he's funny, isn't always easy to get that meaning across. But using contrasting concepts clarifies the meaning. Make sense? Try to remember to incorporate that when you're working from English into ASL. But now here's the caveat. We're working from ASL into spoken English, and someone signs how do you voice interpret that?
Could you say that room's boiling?
But is warm necessarily
No.
boiling? Okay, but how else might you?
Tends to be stuffy.
Tends to be stuffy. Do you have to add in it's not cold?
No.
We usually don't do that type of expansion into spoken English.
Yeah.
We say the point, it's either a positive statement, it's a negative statement, and we're done in English. So here's where we have to stretch ourselves away from all of that glossing when we're going from ASL into spoken English. You may get all of this contrasting information to make the point clear. Do we need to add that into the English interpretation? We just say,
It's warm.
this room is warm. This room is always stuffy. That's the interpretation. What is our tendency? We gloss every single thing that we see. We say, this room tends to be warm. It's not really cold, it's really very warm. And we say it 3 or 4 times to make sure that we're clear, right? Don't we? We do.
Yes. You do that.
You do that. I don't do that, but you do that.
That's great.
This
So is there like a
it
catch? You
comes-
have to be careful because the negative comes at the end, that you're not just blathering on. Do you know what I mean? Well, that's negation.
What mode?
though. That's
And I was going to say, what mode are we working at? Are you going ASL to English or English to ASL?
ASL to English.
ASL into spoken English.
Like, is there a like? I feel like I could be interpreting blah 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 blah, and then at the end they're shaking their head like, no, all that was negative.
Yeah, oh, never mind.
Do you know what I mean?
Which
that
is
would be
where-
a negative,
which
not
is where-
contrastive.
That would be a
Alright.
negation, but
That's
that's
negation.
where, what do we need for that?
Wait,
Yeah, we need processing time to make sure that we get that whole concept clear, because we know in ASL sometimes that whole negation comes at the end.
Yeah.
And otherwise we're going to be backtracking and correcting ourselves. Oh no, I'm sorry, I meant that sarcastically, and that never really happens. Because we didn't wait long enough, right? Okay. Are we clear on this? Okay, again, expansion into ASL to make ourselves clear, incorporate contrasting elements, features. When we go from ASL into spoken English, remember that spoken English, low content, and we only need to say something once and say it clearly, and we're done. Okay, so that's expansion and compression in this technique. Okay, next, faceting. Do y'all remember what this is?